In 2 weeks, the question of Michigan's gay marriage ban heads to the U.S. Supreme Court. We are not the only state the court is hearing arguments from. The Michigan Attorney General's office is getting ready to aggressively defend the 2004 statewide vote that defined marriage as between a man and a woman. Nolan, I'm going to ask you because you saw Attorney General Bill Schuette this week, and they're formulating what their plan is. And what did you hear from him?
Well, I mean, they're going to make the case that the 14th Amendment doesn't, and this is a 14th Amendment case, that it doesn't deal with marriage, and that marriage law is left to the states. And they're not going to make the argument whether, gay marriage is a good thing for society or not a good thing for society. They're strictly going to make the case that the 14th Amendment doesn't deal with marriage, and so that's left to the state. And the people in a democratic system have the right to decide whether they want gay marriage or not want gay marriage in their states. So, that's going to be the gist of the case in Michigan. Now, there's also Ohio, Tennessee, Kentucky, another case, a consolidated case, and that one involves whether a state that recognizes gay marriage, whether those marriages carry over to a state like Michigan that doesn't. And that's an interesting element of this as well.
Yeah, so we have essentially two questions here, and Michigan really stands alone on the voters decided one way, and the state is arguing that that should hold. Stephen, as a former Supreme Court reporter, how do you think this is all going to shake out?
Well, I mean, the justices have made it really clear how they think of these questions these days, and they have been moving since about 2003, maybe a little bit before, toward this point where laws that are passed that have only the effect of discriminating against gay people because they are gay are not constitutional. And they have said that over and over again. First in a case called Lawrence, which was about sodomy in 2003. They revisited the question with regard to sort of discrimination statutes in other states. They have never directly said it with regard to gay marriage, but the implication has been that this should not be different. Now, the idea that marriage is different is also somewhat suspect. I mean, we had this argument with race in the 60s. Marriage is not different. Marriage is a fundamental right. The court has said that over and over again. The idea that you can still do this, I think, is pretty much anachronistic, and we are something of a legal backwater at this point by continuing to enforce that amendment.
Okay, so Stephen alludes to it, the fact that the Attorney General has really taken a couple knocks here for continuing to pursue this. Critics say that he should have just left alone after there was a ruling from here. Nolan, do you get the sense from him that he is pursuing this unrealistically, or that he feels pretty firm in what his job is as Attorney General of the state?
I think he does feel that his job requires him to defend the state constitution, whether he agrees with it or not, or whether he, divines that attitudes have changed. That's not his job. I don't think he's arguing whether gay marriage is good or bad. He's simply arguing that Michigan's constitution says, we don't have it here, and it's his job to defend it. Now, I tend to agree with that. I think it would be a better approach if the state voters had another chance at this. I think the outcome would be completely different, and then it would be the will of the people here rather than something imposed by the court, which is always a healthier.
Well, but which of your rights do you think, your individual rights, do you think that the public should have the right to vote on? I mean, that's the real question here. This is an individual right that's protected under the Constitution. We are denying it to a class of people. Determine. Well, we're denying it to a class of people because of who they are, which under the rubric of the 14th Amendment is not permissible. It is a do not discriminate part of our Constitution.
Be that as it may, Steve, it's in our Constitution. And you can't have the Attorney General, whether it's Bill Schuette or somebody else, taking a look at the Constitution and saying, yeah, well, that one shouldn't apply anymore, that one shouldn't apply anymore.
I think you can
His hands were tied here.
I think what you can do is look at what the trend in federal law is. The court has been striking down, not just at the state level, but at the federal level, any kind of legislation that seems to discriminate against gay people because they are gay.
At any point, Michigan citizens can change that law themselves or demand that their
We
legislature
probably should have.
Yeah, and they probably should have. But you can't look at the Attorney General and say, that's up to you to decide now which pieces of the Constitution are obsolete. He had no choice but to press this case.
This is the argument that Bull Connor made. This is the argument
It's absolutely
that George Wallace made.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely
It is absolutely
standing
not.
in the schoolhouse door at a time when the law so clearly is not on your side.
He is doing what his office requires him to do, and that's defend the state constitution. It has nothing to do with whether he agrees that this constitutional provision is right, wrong, or sideways.
State
and the people have the ability to change it, and they should.
Yeah. Well,
But
state constitutions are subject to federal.
And that's what we're going to find out over the next couple of weeks. But it had to get to this point.
All right. So the arguments in a couple of weeks. We could get a ruling in June. Any odds on how the ruling might shake out? In terms of
my prediction is that this is a 6-3 ruling with Justice Kennedy and Chief Justice Roberts joining the liberal wing of the court to say that you can't do this anymore. You can't discriminate against gays in the area of marriage. I don't think it'll be 5-4 for a number of reasons. And Roberts is the person who has moved on this question. Justice Kennedy's been there for a while.
Yeah. Last word
I don't
on this
think
note.
anybody expects Michigan to win this case. I think this will settle it, and in that sense, it serves a very useful purpose.
All right, and we'll be watching.